why would President Trump be interested in that information being public? Meaning, how does President Trump right now has a lot of different issues he's dealing with. And he's the hardest working man in the world right now. The amount of executive orders, everything he's doing, no one's working harder than him anywhere around the world. His life is public, everybody sees it. Why should Brazil, out of all the things that they're dealing with, be a top priority to investigate and kind of find out what happened here in 2022?
The American politic itself. In Brazil, almost all the administrations before mine always accused Americans of being imperialists. If America really wanted to be a conqueror and gain territories, after the Second World War, they would have gained a large part of the world. And they kept absolutely nothing for themselves. Trump understands, as does a large part of the American people, that freedom of expression is the foundation of democracy. Like, I heard Vice President Vance speaking in the European Parliament. I found his position fantastic. He talked to the Europeans about what the United States is and the lengths they went to continue helping, as long as the Europeans understand that this help really matches what part of the European population wants. Because if the Americans, the United States, leaves NATO, Europe stays there. It becomes vulnerable to many things. We don't want that. It's like a game of war, a popular board game here. 40 years ago, I used to play it. Now I haven't played in a long time. You have to conquer. Countries and continents. Here in South America, the largest country is Brazil. If the enemy in the game of war conquers Brazil, they conquer South America. The enemy, as I see it, has already gained Venezuela. Russia is there. China is there. It's the country with the largest oil reserves in the world and other resources too. That's why some foreign countries are interested in maintaining a foothold in Venezuela, and Brazil might completely shift to the left, just like Venezuela. Besides being a problem for us, it is a problem for the world. If a quarter of Venezuela leaves, okay. Now, if a quarter of Brazil leaves, it would be 50 million people who would go somewhere or try to enter somewhere. It is a serious problem for the whole world. I thank God for Trump winning these elections because there is hope for us. I don't want to... Who am I to give opinions or demand or advise Trump? Who am I? I understand that he has a geopolitical interest that Brazil does not lean into, does not fall into communism. Although he has to. You have to worry. Lula, 2 or 3 months ago, signed 37 agreements with China. Among them, the issue of uranium. And you guys are obviously interested in that. Other measures, Chinese pressure, financial pressure even, and also in another way, through ideology, has been happening in Brazil. For example, the Senate approved a bill to sell land to foreigners. It's going through Congress. While I was president, I didn't let this go forward. Now with the Chinese pressure, it might move forward. If we can sell land to foreigners, China will buy Brazil. It's a big concern. What I said before about military alignment, that's what they were doing. If I were president, this alignment would go back to the United States. It is very good for us. For example, nowadays drug trafficking largely goes through the region here in Brazil known as the Triple Frontier. In my opinion, an agreement for an American military base there would be welcomed. This is a matter of survival for us. Because we are not able to fight crime, especially because organized crime has infiltrated even the institutions here in Brazil. So this alignment to the United States would be exceptional. And Trump, as I understand it, despite having problems to deal with all over the world like Russia and Ukraine, which in my opinion is close to being resolved, or like the issue of the hostages in Gaza, practically resolved as well, among others. Brazil catches the eye, because next to Brazil we have 10 countries that share borders with us, especially looking at Venezuela, Argentina further south, which, in terms of economy and natural resources, it is important for the whole world. So much so that China is here as well. And it would be very good if Trump could take a look here. And I understand that I would be an excellent ally for him, right? As I was in the past.
So that makes sense. Is that kind of how President Trump was aggressive with Panama because China was starting to have a lot of control over Panama, and Panama eventually said, we don't want to have the amount of authority that we're given to China. They backed off. And this could go with a couple other countries that is also spoken like that against as well, threatening with tariffs, threatening with different kind of things. One of the numbers I saw on some of the charts we were looking at is how many Brazilians now live in China. Brazilian citizens moved to live in China and they got visas, roughly 711,000, and it's increased by 321%. Even some entrepreneurs and business owners leaving to Paraguay. We saw a number of, I think it was 175% grown in numbers there, with even numbers of 263,000 people going to Paraguay because they see more opportunity there. Are you seeing, with the current climate of the economy, a lot of folks leaving Brazil to other countries because they see better opportunities?
First, Panama. America built that. Thousands of people lost their lives there. And you handed it over to Panama. When Panama flirts with China, I understand that Trump is right to claim that if they want to give up control of the canal, let the priority be America and not the Chinese. So I think Trump is right. So much so that his administration quickly backtracked on the previous agreement with China. I'm also in favor of the American immigration issue. Over there is your land. If you enter my house, what to do? It's the United States. You go there legally, it's okay. If you don't, out. If the American government doesn't want them there, they have to leave. So America does it right. Even the legal Brazilians support this, because I was in Florida talking to people about this, and since way back then, it was discussed. Then there's the issue of China. China plays silently. They already bought here. We have 3 niobium mines in Brazil. Catalonia in the state of Goiás already belongs to them. They want to buy Araxá, Minas Gerais. There's the 3rd mine left, region of Seis Lagos in the Amazon. I had talked with Trumo about this area. It's an indigenous reserve, but sooner or later this indigenous policy has to be revised here. When Trump won the elections, in one of his speeches, he says he was going to drill, that is, extract oil. Right? The willingness, including indigenous reserves, including areas under environmental protection. In Brazil, it would be the same with me. With strong numbers in Congress, say 50% of the chamber and 50% of the Senate, I'd have the power to decide on indigenous reserves. If the decision was mine, I would, for example, explore niobium in the Seis Lagos region. With whom? With a nuclear democratic country? Let's be open here. With a nuclear democratic country. The United States. I couldn't do it with Japan or South Korea, which despite having advanced technology, would not withstand external pressure for exploiting oil in an indigenous reserve. And I have already seen that Trump does not worry about this. He is going to explore oil in all those areas I told you about. So the alignment between Jair Bolsonaro and Trump there with a strong majority in Congress, me here also controlling the majority in the Brazilian Congress, this can happen. We would form a partnership that would make the whole world envious. And you can be sure that those countries that are considering joining the BRICS, which I know is a small group of countries, but we see it growing, right? These countries would come to our side. And this way, we would guarantee world peace. And each country would have an opportunity to strive for its economic development, to progress, and make their country better for each of their people.
Yeah, when we're talking about China, it's one of the things you're making me think about is the way President Trump communicates with everybody. It doesn't matter who it is. He'll go visit North Korea. He'll go talk to anybody. He knows how to have that relationship. But at the same time, he doesn't want to give China the free rein to be able to go do whatever they want to do because they kind of want to push their weight. President Xi was here, I think, November 19th, just 2 or 3 months ago, and he came to Brasilia for the G20 summit. And he hadn't visited, I think, Brazil since 2014. Maybe you could correct me. What was, from what you noticed with the relationship of Xi and Lula, Is there something going on there? Is there some opportunities? Is there additional investments being made in Brazil for China to have more control in the state? What do you notice with that relationship of Lula and Xi?
Besides uranium, in our beautiful state of Minas Gerais, there's a region called Vale do Jequitinhonha. It's the poorest area in the state, but there is lithium there. The Brazilian government has just handed over the lithium extraction to China. In other words, in those agreements that we don't have access to, some members of parliament requested information because I can't, and it takes 30 or 40 days. We're about to get full copies of those agreements. Though certain things the government does enter into confidentiality, we can't access. In other words, Lula is perfectly aligned with China. So much so that Lula, not long ago, said he would like to change the standard from the American dollar to the Chinese yuan. And Trump said, anyone who wants to move away from the dollar standard, I will impose a 100% tariff. And then Russia itself, which was part of the BRICS. I think it was Leprov who said that the idea was not mine, it was Lula's. In other words, we know about the subservience. We know of the complete subordination of the Brazilian Workers' Party to the Chinese Communist Party. This is coming on fast. And we don't want that in Brazil. I don't want to have a life here for my people like the Chinese people have there. I want freedom, freedom of expression. I want to leverage this beauty that God has given us, that He gave to our people. We want to do business with the whole world. What we want is to maintain and improve the freedom that we have left. And China is not concerned about that. For example, if China starts buying land in Brazil, which they can, each country can buy up to 20% of the respective municipality. Quickly, since for them there is no worker rights, which are called labor laws, right? It's a completely different work risk. Your productivity will be much higher than the neighboring farmers. In other words, they will do something similar to dumping here. They will enslave all our Brazil. And Brazil is food security for more than 1 billion people around the world. It is a strategic country. So I understand that Trump has problems to deal with all around the world. But talking specifically about Brazil, I'm sure he has a very special affection for us and doesn't want us to make a union between the Chinese Communist Party and Brazil.
Is it fair to say that China would rather have Lula as a president than you?
Yeah, he's completely subservient.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I never stopped doing business with China. The agribusiness expanded globally during my administration. Everyone was happy, a lot of wealth for the farmers, and everything was fine. When we left the government, one of the first things Lula started saying was that the agribusiness is fascist. In other words, nobody understands this unwarranted attack on our agribusiness. Everything that is working well in Brazil, Lula wants to take down. Now, maybe this attack on agribusiness is to make things easier. Nowadays, for example, if someone wins the lottery, they don't want to buy land. Because there is a movement of land invaders called MST that started operating again with Lula. They invade properties. Private property is no longer worth anything in Brazil, so the farmer is threatened all the time. This is part of it. Like the CCP, Lula plays the medium and long game. You stimulate production in the field, facilitating the sale of land to foreigners. These foreigners, let's be clear, are China.
Brazil, I'm so glad you're watching this. I want to tell you something here. Do you know what's the one thing tyrants or criminals in politics, in your government, you know what's the one thing they hate? Is for the people to have hope. It's been said, man and women can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, 4 minutes without air, but only 4 seconds without hope. When I was in Brazil, we had dinner with Nicolas Ferreira. And while we're having dinner, we gave him a shirt and we took a picture together. It's called Future Looks Bright with Brazilian flag. I would love nothing more than to see thousands and thousands of people in Brazil to wear a shirt that says Future Looks Bright with your flag. Just for Brazil, we made these custom shirts for you. If you want to inject the spirit of hope in Brazil, go place 1 order, 2, 3, buy it for your peers, your family. Click on a link below or go to vtmerch.com and sport your future looks bright shirt in Brazil. Let the dictators, let the tyrants get so angry the fact that you are optimistic about the future. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.